Let's see. High unemployment.
What?
Low growth.
What?
Out of control crime.
It's true.
Illegals running amok.
What?
A sanctuary state policy and child castration.
What the fuck?
These are just some of the lowlights during Tim Walz's governance in Minnesota.
Now you're an asshole. Total bullshit.
I'm Jasper Gonzo, and this, Minnesota, it's a shitty state.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard.
And it's what's next. Hey, happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Jasper Gonzo, what's next? Your daily dose, common sense, facts, and salt. Hope you guys are feeling good today. Of course, it's always a good thing when you're going into the weekend, if you don't have to work. Tim Walz, this has been his week. The VP candidate of one Kamala Willie Brown, when he was chosen as the #1 draft pick. So, one of the worst governors in the country. You got Newsom in the West Coast, you got Kathy Hochul in the East Coast, and then you got Queen Whitmer in Michigan. So he's, to be in the top 5, that's saying a lot. But what do we know about Tim Walz? Well, we do know that he dodged deployment. He bailed out of his rank. Not his rank. He bailed out of the military just before his battalion was sent off to Iraq. So what a prince. And then, of course, you have another guy. The same guy who lied about his military rank when he retired. And so now he's getting roasted over the coals by one J.D. Vance, who served honorably as a Marine and then went to Iraq. But when it comes to his governance in his state, how's he been? Nobody knew this guy from a hole in the ground, just like the WNBA until Caitlin Clark came. But anywho, the guy's as corrupt as the day is long. This coming out of Breitbart. Tim Walz in Minnesota, lower growth, high crime, more migrants, trans mental surgeries for kids because, of course, he's looking out for child safety. Democrats and pundits are trying to put a brave face on selecting Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate have sought to emphasize his personality and his life experiences, but none point to his record for good reason. Minnesota has declined significantly under Tim Walz's leadership. Economically, Minnesota lags behind the rest of the nation, Barron reports. Overall, Minnesota's economy during Walz's tenure has grown more slowly than the rest of the country, the Center for American Experiment adds. Minnesota recently fell behind the country in GDP per capita for the first time in modern history. If anything, Minnesota should be growing faster than the rest of the country, given its proximity to the fossil fuel industry in the upper Great Plains. But Walz, like his party, embraced the cause of climate change. Yes, hoax bullshit. He has followed the California example in setting a target for zero net emissions by 2050, which means by wiping out the fossil fuel industry and finding solar energy in the winter. That means raising energy prices and possible future shortages, just like California. Well, if you're going to follow the best. Violent crime has risen during Walz's tenure. No. Despite a decrease in 2023. Violent offenses fell across the board in 23, but remain well above historic low levels seen prior to the pandemic. The Black Lives Matter riots played a huge role in 2020, when Walz notoriously delayed sending in the National Guard. Shocker. But the Center for American Experiment notes, Minnesota's crime rates began climbing in 2018, when Walz took office 2 years before the mysterious death of one George Kirby. In 24, violent crime in Minnesota remains 29% above 2019. Another aspect of crime under Walz has been a massive fraud his administration has allowed, notably in the COOF spending. In 2022, the U.S. Department of Justice announced dozens of indictments over fraud connection with a nonprofit group called Feeding Our Future. The defendants stole $250 million from the state. Actually, in the most recent report, it's $500 million, claiming to be using money for meals for children while spending on luxury goods, travel, and even foreign property. Gee, corruption? No. Tim Walz? Yes. Jim Garrity of the National Review noted that Walz failed to prevent the fraud. State legislative audit concluded that Minnesota's Department of Education was asleep at the wheel for years and ignored red flags concerning the nonprofit. It was not only an example of abuse on Walz's watch, there were others, including $29 million for opioid treatments that just never happened. Gee, I wonder why. It's not just that he's a leftist, he's an incompetent one. In his first speech Tuesday as Kamala Harris's running mate, Walz claimed that his philosophy on governance was mind your own damn business, at least when it comes to abortion. In 2023, National Review notes, he signed laws to remove restrictions on abortion until birth. Yes, up until the crown of the head. Get rid of them. So, That's a good guy right there. And repealed laws prohibiting coercing women into abortion. But he took a radically different approach during the COOF pandemic, with lockdowns and vaccination mandates. Gee, what a prince. Waltz even set up a hotline encouraging neighbors to snitch on each other. Yes, bitches get snitches. Or, I'm sorry, bitches get stitches. A hotline set up by Governor Walz's administration to monitor compliance with his 2020 stay-at-home order generated thousands of reports from Minnesotans who snitched on their neighbors for things like playing basketball in a park, walking their dog, and throwing small parties. Alpha News reported he tried to shut down worship at churches until he was sued into oblivion. Minnesota is becoming known as a magnet for migration, particularly from Somalia. While most immigrants are law-abiding and hardworking citizens, well, that's debatable. There have been problems with Islamic terror groups. No, just because Minnesota just happens to be one of the hotbeds of Islam, no, nothing bad could ever happen. The emergence of high-profile radical leaders such as lovely Ilhan Omar. Remember her? Yes, of course, she married her brother. Now she's on the verge of losing her job as well, so it's always a good thing. Whom all supported. He has created an impression that at least some people in Minnesota's new immigrant communities may have values that are incompatible with the American mainstream. Walz has accelerated immigration by turning Minnesota into a sanctuary state, shielding illegal aliens from federal law enforcement. Meanwhile, the New York Post noted, Walz has also signed several pieces of legislation to provide state-funded health care, driver's license, and free college tuitions to illegals. People are not supposed to be here, taking money away from you and me. Democrats are touting Walz's career as a teacher, but education has worsened since he became governor, in spite of higher spending, according to the Center for American Experiment. Yes, let's just throw more money at it because that makes everything better. And Walz has infused left-wing obsessions into education, including transmentalism. He put tampons in boys' bathrooms and signed legislation to make Minnesota a sanctuary state for transmental surgeries on children, just like California. Again, follow the best. Parents could lose custody of their kids if they object. Again, what a piece of shit. Minnesotans are voting with their feet. The state loses net residents to other states every year. Loses net residents to every other state every year. The only reason this population has grown modestly overall due to its foreign population. Weather is partly a factor. In fact, in the Midwest, but are so poor in progressive governance, the knowledge that there are better run states elsewhere, so they flee. The conservative Powerline blog, reviewing his time in office, concludes that Walz is a far-left ideologue whose record is every bit as bad as Joe Dementia's and Kamala Knee-Pads, possibly worse. Well, Kamala Knee-Pads has no policy, so yeah, of course it's worse. No doubt Democrats would disagree. Shocker. But few Americans, right or left, think Minnesota is a model for governance. This is why Walz is largely unknown. It's also why Democrats don't want to talk about Minnesota, as with Kamala Knee-Pads herself, policy and brains is the problem. My thoughts. Well, what a great guy, isn't he? You know, you dodge deployment, you lie about your rank, you're a shitty governor, you know, you allow castration on kids, unfettered abortions. Wow, no wonder Kamala picked him as her number one draft pick. Walz is garbage. He's absolute garbage. And J.D. Vance should have a field day with him in their one and only VP debate. Vance is going to attack and has been going after him regarding his stellar military record. But with everything else that I just read off to you, both Trump and JD are going to have a field day with this guy. It's bad enough you got word salad who can't string two words together without saying, well, you know, it used to be this when it really was this, but it could be this someday, and it's possible this day in the future. And then you have Waltz going, mind your own damn business. I've got a shitty state. I know it, but you don't have to. So the normies in the country better get a real wake-up call when it comes to these two clowns. And I guarantee you, both Trump and JD will make it perfectly clear why they should be in 25 and why these two clowns should get their asses kicked to the curb. And with that being said, I'm Jazz Barganzo. This is What's Next. Want to see more like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share, subscribe to it. Hit that notification bell so you guys never miss a thing. Continue spreading the word about the show. Appreciate you guys watching as always, and we'll see you next time. Peace.